And, I like the fact that these two struggle not just with their own issues, the fact that one of them was discriminated against, the fact that the other one doesn't seem to give herself enough credit for anything. And then they have to turn around and deal with each other and somehow vocalize their problems to each other. Or at least start to do that.
Well, exactly. And I feel like when Sam Humphries had Hal Jordan come in and... just as a side note for all of our people who haven't read Green Lanterns, the short thing is you have to have a little battery that charges your ring. Hal Jordan shows up at the very beginning of this, jams their batteries together, and so now basically they have to work together to even charge their rings. And I feel like where I didn't know when they first introduced that, I didn't know where Sam Humphries was going with that. I feel like that adds an interesting dichotomy.
Oh yeah, it's a really good juxtaposition between the two. Someone who is confident in himself all the time, but has no sense of how other people feel.
Right.
Because he's been the avenue for people's aggression all his life.
Right.
He doesn't understand what that would be like to inflict that onto somebody else. And we see him doing that a lot to Jessica.
Exactly.
Is just constantly berating her, and with her own, she has no self-confidence.
Right.
And she's somebody that, because of, circumstances and the way she feels, she doesn't like being around people any more than she has to.
Right.
And so she has to deal with with telling him that she doesn't need to be the avenue of his rage.
I'm actually going to have to borrow a phrase that you have used in many of our conversations, since we're also friends outside of this, a good way to summarize Simon, which I feel like it is something that sort of explains why he berates Jessica as much as he does, which should hopefully... Because I don't want people to think that he's so berate that he's not identifiable. And one of the phrases you've used a lot is your whole life, when you've lived as a nail.
It's hard not to see everybody as a hammer.
Exactly. And I feel like that's where his aggressive defense comes in. Is anytime he feels like he could be struck at for whatever reason, not just physically, but at all, his immediate response is to, no, I'm going to shut that down. And I feel like while they're oil and water at the beginning of this, and like I said, I've read up to the second volume in, they're starting to be able to blend and mix and help each other in a healthy way. But that's the interesting part about this first volume, is just seeing these two very different opposing forces try and unite.
And another thing I like that this author or writer does is the fact that we're led this entire arc, issue, story, to believe that Red Lanterns are just evil, because those are the main antagonists of this entire thing. The Red Lanterns trying to take over the Earth for one reason or another.
Right.
And we're led to believe that they are just a negative force, someone that's out there to conquer and oppress. And then the second that Simon is able to cleanse one of them, her name being Belize, we see that that's not true at all. I mean, she's just drowning in her rage. That her rage is actually justified.
Oh yes.
I mean, maybe not what she does with it, but the fact that we can understand how she got to where she got.
Exactly. Well, it's also the first time, and this is why I really love this for first-time Lantern readers. This is the first time we run into a ring that you don't choose. The rings find and choose you as a Green Lantern, yes, but you can turn a Green Lantern ring down. It's not going to force itself on you. Some of the negative emotions in the spectrum do not work that way, and red rings are one of those ways. Rings, they find you because you're full of rage, but once that ring's on you,
you can't take it off.
You can't take it off because it replaces body functions, and your mind does not work the same way. You are very cognizant of your rage before you put that thing on. When you put that ring on, other than a few people, it consumes you and it makes you very monstrous. Which is, again, why I agree with you. Having Simon cleanse Belize out of nowhere, it just suddenly makes the reader stop and go, wait. There are beings under these rings. They're not just these faceless monsters here to destroy the planet.
Yeah, there's not there's not the Jedis and there's not the Sith. There's not these people going and being evil just for the sake of being evil, and these people being good for the sake of being good. They're very much, okay, well, I have willpower because I happen to have willpower, and they have rage, well, because they happen to have rage. Exactly. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, as somebody who hadn't been big into Green Lantern, it's certainly not as much as you, and having been exposed to this, it kind of reinforced the idea that, oh, so I can't just look at the color red and assume that that person's evil.
Right.
I have to assume that maybe they have some underlying character emotions behind them.